Now, the last time that we were dealing with our INFJ, that INFJ was at a crossroads. That the crossroads was essentially the decision to take a stance or not to take a stance vis-a-vis spiritualization, vis-a-vis individuation from the INFJ perspective. And I located this period of real important changes as spanning, broadly speaking, the age of 25 to 35, and perhaps even more specifically, most often 30 to 35. And when a decision is made in that regard, and the decision relates to, if you like, sticking to a compliance relationship to the world, or sticking to a solipsistic relationship to the world, or moving from compliant to solipsistic, less commonly from solipsistic to compliant, or engaging in a process of authentic individuation. What happens after, let's say, for the decades that follows, again, always schematically, so from, say, the age of 35 to the age of 45, maybe 50, is less often defined by these big questions. And rather, when we're looking at that phase, we have to consider that there are quite different paths that are now sort of laying themselves out. And we can no longer speak of the INFJ, right? These paths are going to be colored and given texture by the compliant INFJ, who's remained compliant, the solipsistic INFJ, who's either remained solipsistic or has moved from compliance to solipsism, or the formerly solipsistic or formerly compliant INFJ who has allowed the path to individuation to open up before them and started walking down that path. So it becomes difficult to continue speaking of the INFJ perspective as if that was a ubiquitous and unifying perspective when we talk about the phase after the mid-30s most of the time. For the purposes of this video, we could stick to maybe the compliant and solipsistic phases. Usually there's less of a reckoning with other possibilities during that phase. There is more of a reckoning with bad faith. And this is a concept originally put to paper and articulated by the philosopher Sartre, existentialist philosopher, of course. And it's a concept that, in fact, I discussed in my YouTube content. I have made videos about bad faith before, quite a while ago at this point, but you can refer back to them if you're curious. And bad faith is essentially boiling down to lying to oneself in the most convincing way possible to convince oneself that another path is not available. In this particular instance, and this is also the meaning that Sartre intended, lying to oneself in order to justify to oneself, often quite convincingly. Like I said, if the justification is not convincing, doesn't work, that there is no other path, particularly that there is no path to authenticity. So translated into the terms of Jungian analysis, Jungian psychology, no path of individuation available. It's too late, it's too this. And the reason why it tends to happen between the ages of 35 to 45 or 35 to 50 is that, well, this is an age where often the INFJ becomes a parent. This is usually the period during which the INFJ buys a house, acquires property, and if they have a house and a child, say, well, they cannot mess around with finances. They have to be careful. So the justification of I can't do anything else. I have to keep this job. I have to remain in that line of work because there's a good reason. You know, my mortgage, my child, my marriage, what have you. So all sorts of extraneous reasons. Of course, you know, all these reasons are valid in and of themselves, but it's quite a different thing to use these reasons to justify not making the choice of authentic individuation. The justification works because the visions, the justifications and reasons taken in themselves individually are, in fact, justified and convincing. But the reckoning with bad faith is something that is quite dominant during that period, which is why you see less shifting to spiritualization during those years, right? And in fact, as we will see in a later video, there is a second opening that manifests once that phase is over, because often then the pressure of raising a child, the pressure of making a marriage work, maybe the mortgage is mostly paid off, and so there is once again time at one's disposal, and the existential reckoning manifests itself again on the horizon. Okay, guys, don't forget you can support me on Patreon. I need your help more than ever, so please support me. Please consider supporting me anyway. The link to my Patreon is below. You know that in return you get cool perks like access to our Discord server and a bonus video every 2-3 weeks. Recorded one just a few days ago. And don't forget my books on the INFJ, The Infinite Soul. The latest one on INFJ life in the modern world is available at the first link. Get it if you haven't yet, of course. You know that if you want a really deep understanding of the INFJ, my books are pretty go-to. The Ecstatic Soul is the deepest investigation into the INFJ mind. Check both of those books. The links are below, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye.